I'm Sam Roberts. Welcome to In the Notsam Studio, our conversation series here on the Notsam YouTube channel. If you're liking what you're seeing, go ahead and hit like now. Subscribe to the channel, turn the bell on so you get alerted every time new content drops. And leave a comment and let me know who else you want to see in the Notsam Studio. Aaron Schwartz is an iconic actor going through one of the best runs anybody could possibly have in the 90s. First, starring in Mighty Ducks, then The Adventures of Pete and Pete, and finally, being the star of Heavyweights. Over the last 10 years, Aaron has decided not to be a fat kid anymore. He's gotten into ridiculous shape. He's been acting consistently in movies and TV shows like Gossip Girl, and he's working on a documentary about child actors called Stigma. I talked to Aaron about the level of comedy that was actually being worked on in Heavyweights.
I remember being on set and them telling us about notes that they would get from Disney, being like, you can't do that.
Got an update on his friend, actor Shaun Weiss.
It has this kind of like clickbait feeling around it. Like everybody wants to talk to him. Why? Because he was in the shit and now he's getting better.
And a lot more. Look, if you're anything like me, you probably feel like you grew up with Aaron Schwartz. And luckily, he actually ended up being a pretty cool dude. And that's why today, he's in the Notsam Studio. I am very happy to have on the show today somebody who, and this is gotta be so weird for you, because I feel like I kind of have a connection with you already, and that, you know, we've kind of been buds since we've been kids. However, this is our first time having a conversation.
Hey,
Aaron
man,
Schwartz.
great seeing you. It's such a long time.
yeah. Do people, have you had the experience when people meet you who, you know, love the stuff that you did when you were a kid, that they're disappointed that you made healthy choices and that you have actually like turned out to be this like in shape guy?
I think there is disappointment there sometimes. I think they try to disguise it as like, good for you, but like the subtext is more like, this motherfucker, what did he why did he lose all that weight? Now I don't even know who this guy is. Is it really him? You know, we see Al Roker and like he lost all that weight. It's not really Al Roker anymore.
No, no, and it's a really selfish thing. Like, that's how you know when somebody does not view you as a human being. Like, as a human being, when you see a human being that you know, you're like, oh man, I'm so happy. Like, you look great. You seem much happier. It's gonna make your life longer.
You're not gonna die young.
You're
like, we're really happy for you.
Yeah. And you're like, no, you existed on this screen that was in my house, and now you don't look like that, and it bothers me.
You ruined it. I'm never watching Heavyweights again because you look nothing like Jerry Garner. I'm done with you.
Yeah. Why would you go to fat camp? This doesn't make any sense.
Hey, I'm working on it. Hey, quarantine's been assisting in that. So, give me another year. Maybe I'll get back to good old Jerry.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see a child star grown up to just, gain weight back in their 40s.
No.
It's a depressing thing.
No, absolutely not. I went into, one of those places, like a store that they measure you for suits, like they do custom suits or whatever. And they said that, they were closed down for a while, but business is literally better than it's ever been because every customer is going in and getting remeasured. They have to rebuy everything because anything that they had made that was custom before this, everybody's gained weight. Everybody's just a mess.
It's like Amazon and Domino's are just killing.
Yeah.
Anything, Instacart, anything you can just be at home and just order and sit on your fat ass. That's what you want.
When did you decide? When did fitness become a thing for you? Because obviously you're not just a guy who was like, I'm going to eat healthy, and like you clearly take fitness extremely seriously now.
Yeah, well, I guess.
Like your jaw is like straight lines. That's usually the tip off. I see.
You're my favorite interview ever. Hey, keep on rolling in those compliments. I I always kind of was. I guess at that time I wasn't. I was raised vegetarian. My father was a vegetarian uh, since I can remember, and I was raised kind of vegetarian. My mom wasn't 100%, but I didn't eat meat until I was like 8 or 9. But then I got into the entertainment industry and threw all caution to the wind, Taco Bell all the time. And, but I think when I hit about like 16, 17, honestly, if I'm going to be like completely honest, I just wanted to get laid.
Yeah.
Yep. I was like, I'm like the cute friend, or I'm like the kid who was in the movie and like, yeah. But when it came time to like anything fun, I wasn't the one to go to,
No.
So I think it was an attention thing, maybe, I was an actor used to getting attention, and I wanted to get a different type of attention.
Yeah.
I think it started there, and then I started feeling good. Running became kind of an addiction almost.
Yeah. It's like one of those things where you don't realize, like, you start feeling good doing something and you don't realize that you felt bad before. It was just normal.
Yeah.
Like, like you could just feel this way all the time, and you're like, oh, this is what I should have been doing all along.
100%. Wait, it's not normal to like walk 3 flights and just be like completely out of breath.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Well, plus, like, I mean, Hollywood is such a weird industry because when you find like a niche, like before then, when you were a kid and you were acting as a kid, you were the heavy kid. So it's like there was literally, not only was there no motivation for you to get in shape as a kid, but also like it was better that you didn't, because you got that attention being heavy.
Yeah. I just had an interview with somebody about heavyweights, and they talked to Steve Brill, who co-wrote it with Judd Apatow. And Steve told him that he didn't think I was heavy enough for it. They were like, not maybe this might be blowing up some spots and it might sound bad, but whatever. Mm-hmm. They were trying to like kind of like allow me to get a little bigger. Let me use the word allow me to get a little bigger. And and so I always thought that craft service was amazing, and then I'd show up to other sets. I'm like, this craft service is shit. Where's all the things that I asked for? Like, there's my writer. No, but he did, like, he filled up those craft service tables. That was the set to be on if you wanted to eat.
That's awesome. Every day is like the scene when the kids take over the camp, where it's just every food imaginable, and you're having whipped cream orgies, and it's just.
That food fight scene, I never got to finish, and they were having a blast. They really, like, there were set pieces, but they also really got to like just eat whatever the hell they wanted, like eat some of the stuff that was there on set. And I broke my arm doing that scene.
How did you?
Right at the beginning.
How did you break your arm?
Running. The grass was a little wet, and like, of course, everybody there, like SAG reps, everybody's like, oh my God, everybody's freaking out, and they had to like change the way they were filming it. But I slipped either on wet grass, or it might have been a chicken bone that was like tossed when they were like eating chicken and throwing it, and like we're running up this big grassy hill.
Yeah.
And I slipped and landed right on my arm and just kind of like fractured my wrist.
I mean, let's be honest. Keenan sabotaged you. He threw down a piece of salami and knew. No. He knew. He was like, we could switch around some scenes here.
Yeah, I still blame Keenan. I tell you the truth. He was definitely like throwing that like a banana peel, but a chicken bone right under me. He's like, fuck this kid.
So was that like towards the end of shooting then? Like, or did you have to kind of shoot around?
Yeah, we had to shoot around it. It was kind of like, it was towards the beginning, actually. It was like a month in, I think. So it was like right in the middle.
Wow.
So, I had to get a removable cast. They used like this plexiglass. I don't know what it was. It was some moldable plastic that you would take off. And, they always say that casts stink when you take them off.
Mm-hmm.
I had a continuous smelling cast. This thing would always, I had to like clean it up all the time. It just was horrible. I was like, this thing is disgusting.
Man, I hope, I don't know if I can enjoy this movie anymore. I hope child labor laws look into it. It's like they were overfeeding the kids. This kid had a broken arm. They wouldn't let him wear his cast. It was literal torture.
Yeah, cast might have been like, infecting people on set. Who knows?
I think so. I think so. Yeah. Well, so how did you get started as a actor? I don't want to say child actor because there's so much like that phrase like
Stigma
means something.
attached.
Yeah. Like it.
I want to talk a little bit about what I'm making right now is a
I
documentary about the stigma attached to child actors.
Oh, trust me, I know exactly why you said that word stigma. I was like, this is a professional. This is a
Yeah, I know
professional.
what I'm doing. Segue action right there. I'll send you a link actually to the teaser, but yeah, it's messed up the way people view it. But at the same time, it's like also, I think it's also messed up to like throw too much cancel culture at something. I
Hmm.
think sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Like you're a child actor, so you're a child actor.
Hmm. Yeah,
Michael Ray Bauer, who plays Donkey Lips in Salute Your Shorts,
sure.
I interviewed him, and he says he hates the word child star or child actor because it denotes that, you know, that's all we are, that we're not just an actor. And I mean, when you're known for something as a kid, you're gonna be, you're gonna be known for something as a kid. It's par for the course as long as, it doesn't pigeonhole you into something. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But there is a huge stigma attached to actors in a negative way.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah.
Like, oh, he was a child actor. Like it means something instead of just saying
Oh,
he acted when he was a child, but is still
right.
acting. Oh, okay. Well, as long as I can phrase it like that, I guess it doesn't mean oh, child actor. Oh yeah, no, we
Yeah.
don't.
He was acting when he was a child, and then everybody's like, "Oh, he's an alcoholic for sure."
Yeah, yeah,
But actually, let me ask you. I might use a little bit of this footage in my doc if I can.
yeah. Of course.
Um, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the phrase child actor?
Child actor to me is a disaster. Like it's I start thinking immediately about, the horror stories that you hear and the kids that weren't prepared for the industry by anybody, meaning like not prepared for those lows that we're going to hit after the highs. I think
Mm,
about like parents. Immediately you go to parents, right? You think about irresponsible parents who were taking their kids' money or they were pushing their kids to something they didn't really want to do or didn't really know what it was.
right.
Yeah, I definitely, when I hear child actor, I never think of successful adult actors who started when they were children.
Exactly. That's, I mean, like you look at like 80, if not more percent of the actors out there that are actually successful probably started when they were children.
Right.
You got Damon, Ben Affleck, Natalie Portman, like all these people, they all started when they were kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's like one of the things that I ask, because it's kind of like I ask every single person in the beginning of it, and it kind of shows already, you don't, without even explaining what the idea of the documentary is, you immediately know, okay, yeah, every single person is kind of like put a little negative twist on it. And why is it that way? Is it actually, does every child star or child actor that doesn't make it, do they end up becoming like a little screwed up? Or is that just what we see? Is the narrative that makes it that way? Or is it actually that? So it's like, that's like, I literally don't know either. Like, I know I'm not normal, but I'm not screwed up. I'm not on drugs. I'm well adjusted. I pay my bills. I'm not struggling. So it's like, what are the others,
I
and
mean,
why are they out there? And is it factual, or is it some shit that's narrated by TMZ? And so yeah, that's
yeah.
my little.
Well, you do got to get that runner's high though. Always
Oh,
chasing that runner's high.
chasing
There's
the dragon.
yeah,
I call it. Yeah,
yeah. You're chasing the
dragon,
dragon.
chasing that first hit.
Well,
Yeah.
well, you tell me. I mean, because like, look, I've told this story before. I think like I was on a game show when I was a kid. Coincidentally enough, that's where I met Danny Tamborelli for the first time.
Really?
Yeah,
Which TV show?
I was Figure It Out on Nickelodeon.
Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's amazing.
so I was a contestant on the show, and I was probably like I don't know 12 or something like that,
Yeah.
and like I rode such a high. Like I sent in my tape, and just the phone call like months later, that they were like, okay, yeah, we saw your tape and we want to use you, and it's like, oh my god, I'm gonna be on this show. I'm gonna be on Nickelodeon, and my mom sent in a little thing to the local newspaper, like town kid
So
made
cool.
good, and all this stuff, and it was like this huge thing, and I get to Orlando. And there's a sign with my name on it in the airport instead of my parents' name on it, and it's like I'm just the man.
Wow.
And like you go
Yeah,
and you go to the
feeling.
TV studio and you do all this. And as soon as and you do and there's there's Danny Tamborelli and the guy from Nick Arcade and everybody's there, Michelle Trachtenberg, and it's like, oh my God, this is real. Summer Sanders is the host and she's standing right next to me. And then as soon as the game show is done filming, they're like, all right, guys, into the van. We're going back to the hotel.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're like,
We're
oh,
done with
what?
you.
Yeah. Is this
You no longer
over?
are making us any money.
Right. Right. And you don't I didn't
Find your way home.
right. And I was so not prepared that you don't think about it. Like I thought this high that I was on of like, I'm on a game show was that was the new feeling in my body.
Once a week and seeing how I'm doing.
Yes.
They're going to ask me to come to set once in a while and be my friend. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And then it's like the phone.
That's human nature.
Right. But then
if somebody's treating you this nicely, there's a reason for it. And when you connect it to the idea of it being a business, it feels like you're being used.
Right. So the phone calls stop, and by the way, like it's not like I'm faulting it for the phone call stopping because they're filming a show. Like why would the phone calls keep going? So, but I think, and so it kind of gave me a new perspective on how I looked at like young people that end up in show business. Cause like, I can't imagine, trying to navigate through those highs and lows. And I kind of think a lot of it has to do with having stability at home and having good parents that can be like, look, this is okay, this is what you're feeling right now. And it's okay. And it's normal. And this is why. And like kind of easing you back into normal life. Do you think that's the case?
I think it's, now that I'm a puppy dad, I think I'm noticing it's funny. I'm actually noticing, that's so retarded that I even said that, but like, but it's, I'm noticing that there's a way of like distracting the puppy. When she doesn't want to do one thing, you got to distract her. And then all of a sudden she wants to do something else. And you have to distract your kids when they have like something like that happens to them. I feel like a lot of parents, drop the ball on this. They don't, in a way, give them something else. Take them to karate. Take them to, keep them interested in some other hobby. Because when you make the acting business or the entertainment business anyway, their life, it's just going to swallow them up because the whole business is based on rejection. You get one yes out of 100 no's if you're lucky. So when your child is put in that position, you got to like fill it up with a bunch of other yeses from somewhere else, Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. How did was it more difficult for you as a kid to take rejection before the Mighty Ducks or after? Because the Mighty Ducks was probably like the first really huge thing that you did. I think it was your first movie, and it was a monster of a movie. And so it's like, I don't know. It feels like to me it would be more difficult to.
That's a really good question. Not a lot of people think of it that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I think it was harder actually after.
Right?
Mm-hmm. I think so. So yeah, I remember the first time there was rejection. So it was such a traumatizing experience, the rejection, which I innately knew was going to come along with the territory, but you always believed. And I was 6 years old when I started. And there's another thing about the way I started. It wasn't I started because my mom asked me to do stuff, or parents were like, go out and like, let me live vicariously through you. I really wanted to do it myself. My mom was not connected to the industry, did not care less about it, but she did want me to be happy. And she was like, whatever you want, like, let me assist you in this. And she would, I would go out and find ways. I saw Anthony LaPaglia, Michael Keaton on the streets of New York City filming One Good Cop. I went up to them and asked them, how do I become a movie star? And
that's awesome.
LaPaglia writes down this list for me. And, I see him a year later after booking the Ducks, like 2 years later. And it's like, it worked. It worked. And I did that all on my own. So my journey has been it's not the usual journey. There are some that are like that, but I think a lot of child actors, they are put into that position, and then it becomes something that's the only thing they know. So for me, I think that whole thing really helped me look at things a little differently. So when I got my first taste of rejection, I was not really aware that the rejection would exist that way. I thought it would be like, okay, they say no here and there, but it wouldn't be like, I booked a role. I booked a movie, the first movie I ever booked. It was a student film, but it was still like, I wanted to be a movie star when I was 7 years old. I booked this movie and they go, I'm too small for the character after I booked it. And then I'm not going to be in it. And they have to put somebody else because they did like a thing where they did like a chemistry thing with all of us.
You were Eric Stoltz in Back to the Future.
Oh my God. I'm so happy he wasn't in that though.
Yeah, I mean, they made the right choice.
How dry would that have been?
Yeah, it wouldn't have worked. Wouldn't have worked.
Doc, come on, Doc. So, I think it really fucked me up. And so that rejection got me like really messed up for, I think it might still like have some sort of like thing that I do. Like when I got older, once I did book the Ducks is when it really like took hold. And I think a lot of I had a fear of auditioning, which is like the worst thing because the only way to book a role is to audition and kill it, right?
Yeah.
You know, I didn't come out of that being Natalie Portman in The Professional, where I was just getting offer roles. After the Mighty Ducks and Heavyweights, I was still hustling to get more roles. You know, people kind of knew who I was, but I wasn't a name. And I think it took a really long time for me to get past the fear in auditioning, and I think it was probably because of the rejection and the fear of rejection. It probably did some sort of PTSD damage to me.
Yeah, I mean, at 7, who has that kind of rejection? Like that doesn't happen in regular life when you're 7, right? Like you don't process that until later.
Sorry. You try to shield your children from that pain when you want your kids to know that this is how life works, but at the same time you also want your kids to be protected from all those horrible things until they get a little older, at least, you know?
Right. But you do get the Mighty Ducks, and I mean it becomes the run that you went on is as iconic as any kid could ever go. I can't, to go from Mighty Ducks to Pete and Pete to Heavyweights, to me is like, that's just a perfect like slice of time, right?
It was also like, as much of a fan as you were of, you know, Pete and Pete and Can't Do That on Television and, you know, all those I was a Nickelodeon fanatic when I was growing up. Like I booked Pete and Pete first before I did the Ducks. Actually, the first job I had, I was kind of like an under 5, which is like less than 5 lines, almost an extra on Pete and Pete in the summer one where we're all Mr. Tasty. I don't know if you remember Mr. Tasty. We're all standing there, all sweaty in the heat. That was my first like television gig. And I met Danny and hung out with Danny. We ended up becoming friends on that set before I even did the Ducks.
Wow.
And then we saw each other on the Ducks. So I don't know exactly how I booked Pete and Pete afterwards when they turned it into that half an hour thing, but it was like everything just kind of aligned. Everything was kind of put in place. Yeah.
What was going on? Because there are like so many connections in terms of casting between Ducks and Pete and Heavyweights, and like was it just that the casting directors liked this clique of kids? Was it, because it's not like when you're an adult you would assume like, oh well, George Clooney likes this guy, so he recommends this guy to a casting director. But when you're kids,
they're packaged by a lot of it's now packaged by like CAA. They have these packaging things where they throw editors, everything into a mix, you know. But back then, I don't think that was I don't know what it was, man. I really don't. It just, I think maybe with Pete and Pete, I have to ask Danny about this actually. I think with Pete and Pete, they might have known that they remember me from being in it before. And maybe Danny was like, give him a job. I don't know. Maybe I owed Danny like a thanks for getting me into Pete and Pete. I'm not really sure.
I hope he had that kind of power, wearing his plaid hat with his Petunia tattoo, just telling everybody on set who to book and who not to book. I really do hope that
like he had that power. He was like, listen, guys.
Yeah. So the Pete, and I've talked to Danny Tamborelli about this too, because I think what's so fascinating about that show is you always like, now I feel like Pixar has made it so that the phrase, "Oh, there's adult humor mixed in." It's a kid show, but there's a little adult humor mixed in there, and it kind of drives me crazy because
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's kind of dumb, but when you
That they
look,
say that? That they say there's adult humor mixed
yeah,
in?
yeah, and I'm like, what adult is watching Toy Story without their kids? Like, it's weird. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird to me.
Yeah.
It's a kid's
Yeah.
thing, you know. But
Yeah, I get it.
but when you watch Pete and Pete, there's so much subversiveness going on in there. Like, it's such a weird kind of punk rocky, bizarre show. Like, right down to
What child knows who Iggy Pop is?
That's
What
what I mean.
child knows who Marshall Crenshaw is?
Yeah.
Or Michael Stipe? It was or like Polaris is like the opening song. Like
yeah.
I used to say I used to tell people Pete and Pete is a kid show on acid.
Yes. That's
what I used to
exactly
tell
right. Because I mean, even your character on it, it's like the whole gimmick of your character was that you had mutton chops.
Yeah.
But like no kid thinks that that's funny. Like that's not like as a kid I was like, okay, he's got mutton chops. Like I didn't get the humor in that.
The guy grows a beard. Yeah, you didn't. And then when you're older, you look back, you're like, that's fucking hilarious.
Exactly. That's what I love about that show. That I feel like the adults writing that show just did stuff. Probably did a bunch of acid and wrote a show.
Having a good time.
I mean,
honestly. Yeah.
The one episode that centers around Little Pete having the president cereal stuck up his nose is like
Eisenhower.
Yeah, it's like Eisenhower.
I'm a huge fan of the show. That's the funny thing. I love the Ducks. I love Heavyweights, but I was part of it as it came into fruition. The Pete and Pete was before I joined. So when I was on that show, I was a fan of the show. When I got to work with Artie, the strongest man in the world, I was losing my shit every time because I was like, Toby Huss is the most amazing comedian in the world. And I knew about his comedy other than being Artie. So I was like a nerdy television fanboy while being in it. So it was incredible. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you're getting some of even as a kid, you're getting some of the depth that's being put into that show and the casting decisions and stuff like that.
I mean, yes. And then I got to play with Marshall Crenshaw.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who Marshall Crenshaw was at the time, but my mom was like, oh my God. My mom was like, are you kidding me? Marshall Crenshaw is here? She lost it. And so I was like, and now I look back and I'm like, yeah, I jammed with Marshall Crenshaw. No big deal,
Yeah, man, you forget about the genius of that show. Like I was rewatching before this. I think the episode where your character kind of gets introduced as a regular, where Pete's band is introduced, and the episode just starts with Big Pete as the narrator saying, "This is my little brother Pete, and this is his radio station," and he's just got a radio station, and there's never this explanation as to why this kid would have a radio station, and I'm like, this is the greatest. Like this is.
I have a question. Is that episode the reason you are sitting where you're sitting right now?
I mean, what else could... Number one, that episode is why I have a studio in my house, and your character, originally this beard was mutton chops.
Yeah.
And
so the mixture of my mutton chops and Pete being on the radio is what we see right now.
This is it. It's literally Sam Roberts.
I don't see any crep stars over there.
Yeah. So... let's talk about heavyweights. That's what this has all been building to. I mean,
all building to the heavyweights thing.
Yeah, dude. Because I
don't talk about heavyweights anymore. I'm sorry.
Oh, jeez. Well, Gossip Girl.
Oh yeah. That's a great day. I mean, I'm happy to talk about that.
Yeah. But before we get to Gossip Girl, we are going to talk about heavyweights because heavyweights, I feel like is along the same lines as Pete and Pete, where I think I loved it as a kid, right? But I rediscovered it when I was like 19-ish. And I put it on as like one of those like nostalgic kind of, oh, let's watch the movies that you watched when you were a kid and laugh at it differently and ha ha ha. And I put it on and I was like, this is not a kid's movie. This is a genius comedic performance from the whole cast. And I'm looking at who's in it. And I'm like, so Judd Apatow, this is his first big film. He had done Larry Sanders.
He was 27 or 28 years old. How much of a piece of shit does that make you feel right now? Like when you think, I don't know, maybe is that just me?
No, I'm with you.
So 27, what was I doing at 27? I think I was trying to like pick up some girl at a bar and like, I don't know.
Yeah. And
well, I remember what I was doing. I was like, it wasn't that bad, but I mean, at 27, I definitely was not making movies.
No.
Like Judd Apatow. It's legit.
Yeah. You weren't writing Tony Perkis at 27. No. Because so it's like Judd Apatow, but you've got Ben Stiller, you got Jeffrey Tambor, you have Paul Feig, you have Stiller and Mira. Stiller and Mira are, it's iconic. And I mean, I remember seeing Dodgeball in theaters.
Yeah.
And like everybody being like, oh, Ben Stiller is genius in this. I'm like, bro, he's Perkisizing.
This is a sequel to what he did in
yeah. So I mean, I don't know if when you were making it, you realize, and it's also one of those movies that you watch now and you're like, this isn't a Disney movie in 2021. Like I don't even think it would pass the mustard as a kid's movie just because of all the stuff going on in it, but it certainly isn't a Disney movie in 2021.
Nowadays with cancel culture, I have a feeling this movie would not be able to be, and nobody would touch it.
No, just because of the
body, you have to show body rights and show like, I don't know. It just, yeah.
I don't think it will work. Although, I mean, ultimately, and this is the lesson, like the journey that we go on is ultimately you are very body positive. Ultimately, the guy who is in, by the way, the guy who is in Aaron Schwartz 2021 shape is ultimately the villain of the whole film. So it is what you want it to be, but you have to go down the road to get there.
You have to peel back the layers of comedic writing. And yeah, honestly, I mean, it's in the genre of like all the, Adam Sandler kind of films. It's that, and all of Judd's films, this is for all those films are all like at the near the middle to the end of it. There's this like wholesome message that always comes out in everything that he does. And I think that's like a formula for success, because as much as you want to see like this like intricate storyline, everybody wants a formula where the good guy wins.
Yes.
Everybody wants that ultimately.
Yes.
And I think it was incredible the way he did it and the way he wrote it. And I remember being on set and them telling us about notes that they would get from Disney, being like, you can't do that, and you can't do this, and you can't, and it would just be like, and so they would say certain lines and they had to like cut out these lines, and sometimes they wouldn't. And then you would see like, there's a scene in when Tony's questioning everybody about like where all this stuff came from. And somebody says it's Seymour Butts. Remember that Seymour Butts scene?
Yeah.
And it's obviously dubbed over, and it's like dubbed over. I don't know if Judd did this on purpose. I would love to ask him, but it was Peter Fitz was the original thing. This stood out to me till today, because I realized that they could not allow that to be in anything that was Disney, because it's like, who's Peter Fitz? Anybody's Peter Fitz if you push hard enough. Like it's a blatant, like, sexual innuendo, and it's like nonstop of those that they throw in there. And it's like, they're always like, we're going to get away as much as we can. I can't believe Disney let us do this. We're just going to fucking just throw everything in there.
Yeah.
Bullets coming out of the Pez dispenser. It sounds like bullets hitting the floor.
Yep, I love that.
Controversial,
absolutely,
right there, right?
Absolutely.
From the black kid in the movie. I mean,
it's controversial.
Yeah. So I remember always on set being like, are they going to get away with this?
Yeah. Well, they probably did, and it's like an old radio trick too, where you ask for something completely outrageous that you're not going to get, so the thing that they would have said no to actually seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a great idea. I think I used that as a kid a lot. My mom.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, like, you wouldn't, from the beginning of the movie, when you get presented the video and you realize that it's a fat camp, and you just look at Jeffrey Tambor playing your father and you go, you're fatter than I am. And like, it's It's just little moments like that.
Yeah.
Like there's no age. Like I could, I'll be 70 and I'll just be laughing at that little kid calling his dad fat because he is kind of fat, and it's like that's funny. Like
Yeah. Or Tim Blake Nelson, not knowing who he even was at the time,
Uh-huh.
is the guy who's trying to sell the camp. He's like the salesman, and they hired Tim Blake Nelson from Oh Brother Where Art Thou?
Yes.
And like I see him in later years. I'm like, man, they picked out some big heavy hitters for this movie. Peter Berg does a cameo in it.
Who does Peter Berg play?
He plays a lunch lady guy who goes, "Hey, your friend Josh."
Oh, that's right.
That's Peter Berg.
Yeah.
The famous director Peter Berg.
Yeah.
Like wild how Judd just got all these people and brought them in.
I mean, but you see it later. I mean, to go off on a Judd Apatow tangent, when you like watch Freaks and Geeks, which was a few years after Heavyweights, and you look at the casting in that thing, and you're just like star, and you can't like the people making cameos in the thing, like Rashida Jones just showing up for an episode.
Amazing, right?
Yeah, it's mind blowing.
Sean Weiss was in that. Sean, who plays,
Yep.
who plays Josh, he was in that for a couple episodes.
Yep.
So yeah, it's got a huge. I mean, Paul Feig.
Yeah.
Paul Feig, just Judd Apatow, Paul Feig, all those guys they just can't miss.
Yeah.
Just keep on hitting.
Do you have any idea what Lars is doing now? I feel like we talk about this casting, but Lars, like, I mean, I swear,
Lars the actual guy or Lars the character?
All right, let's do both. I feel like every time I get around a body of water, I just want to shout out, "Body!"
Body! Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Lars the character is probably back in like Austria, hooked up to a sleep apnea machine, telling his huge overweight wife is like, "You don't know what I used to do when I was younger." I don't know. That was horrible. But yeah, so that's what but Tom is he's in LA. I just saw him and talked to him a couple months ago. He's doing well.
That's awesome.
He's got a kid. He's got a wife. He's still acting. We actually sent out a little tape for some friend's birthday, and where we reenacted the scene where he comes into the camp for the first time. We did it via Zoom, and we had to edit it together. It was pretty funny. He's a good guy. He's a funny guy.
It's awesome. He's got to be a funny guy. I mean, he's hilarious in that movie. The scene where he's tied up to the tree, and he like the timing of, "I'm with you. I love you." It's just like genius.
Oh, he's great. I always thought he was amazing, especially when you like talk to him. Like when we first did the scenes and we did rehearsals, I didn't meet him prior to it. I think he just showed he wasn't there with us, and so he shows up. We're doing the scenes, and I go and like introduce myself after rehearsal, and he's like, "Hey, how are you, man? What's going on?" And I'm like, "Whoa." That's acting right there, man. Wow. Yeah. I was in awe of him. Yeah.
So I was watching some interview you did, and you were talking about how Ben Stiller, like, first of all, what's hilarious about Ben Stiller is he's this comedic genius, except he's also like super ripped, legit. Like he really is like this ripped dude, which you don't really see in comedy. But you were talking about how he was kind of method in that way, where he was like, was he method in terms of being fit, or I mean, he wasn't staying in that sort of assholeian character the whole time, was he?
No, he was disconnected though. I remember talking to him about it later on. He was like, "I was really trying just not to become too friendly with you guys because I didn't, I really wanted to like make this character work." And I was like, "Man,
dude, that's
such
comedy." And it's a
Yeah.
kid's comedy. Like that's why this thing is so good. That's such a wild level of commitment to do. Like, I mean, this is like a kid's summer fun popcorny thing.
That was so dedicated. I mean, everybody.
Yeah.
I was actually Sean Weiss, who's doing much better. I know it's a big,
Yeah.
it's a red like topic to talk about, but Sean Weiss is doing great.
That's awesome. By the way, that's awesome to hear because it was really like, it was scary.
Oh man, it was touch and go.
It
was rough. He looked completely different, but he's doing much better. He has like a new lease on life. He really wants, he just sent me a text the other day. Like I really want to like make sure I get my life together properly. I want to be able to have a dog. I want to be able to have all these things, and so he's doing much better. But he came by to visit me and Sammy, my dog.
That's great.
He loves my dog, and he wanted to like brought it over like a little toy and some like didn't bring me any gifts, but he brought my dog gifts. But yeah, and he we were talking about all this stuff, and I remember him bringing up a couple of things. What were we talking about? My brain just completely farted.
Commitment to we were talking about the level of commitment that Ben Stiller had, and you were saying that everybody,
Yes.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, yeah, I remember talking about it, and I remember going, and I think he was like, do you have any like memorabilia? And like, I dug up like an old script to show him. It was a really cool moment we had the other day. And I showed him the Heavyweight script, and it was all highlighted. All of my lines were highlighted.
Wow.
And I put little like things like dots in places. And I was like, what the hell was I doing? And I was like, I memorized the script. Like I read it so many times. I was so prepared as a 13-year-old.
Wow.
I really wanted to make sure like and everybody was like that. And Sean was like, man, you never missed one line. It's like, it doesn't make a good gag reel, but it makes, for a good, and it was everybody on set. He was always on it. Everybody, like anybody who was on that set, for such a comedic child movie, for these people to be so dedicated. It's like, it was pretty astonishing.
But I mean, it had to be pretty scary for you, right? I mean, this is as much as big deal as the Mighty Ducks is, and as cool as it is to be on Pete and Pete, a show that you're a fan of. This is your movie. Like, you're not a person at the fat camp. You're the kid going. This is your story. Like, you're the lead.
It's wild. I think I let that set in when I was a kid, and like, I think it's human nature. You kind of like, you can easily get a big head from it. In the beginning, I think I did start getting a big head from it.
Yeah.
But the way they set up that whole shoot, they really made it so that everybody was like on equal grounds. We all got the same size trailers. We never got bigger ones. We all got like, they all had the little, what are they called? The little trailers that you get when you're pretty much an extra in a movie.
Uh-huh.
They gave us like luxurious, like big trailers. They made us all feel like we were all part of the same thing. Nobody was better than another person. And I think anytime anybody pulled any prima donna shit, they checked them straight real quick. They checked them. They were like, who do you like? Right. Not in a nice way. So it was my, like, the character's storyline, but I think the camaraderie that we had as like a team, I guess, like in the Ducks, we were all a team. In this, we were kind of a team. I think that's what made everybody kind of like do their job properly and stay in the lines and not, go over anything.
Yeah, anybody pulls any ego stuff and they end up like Josh disappearing from camp one night.
Exactly.
Right.
You.
I'm so glad, by the way, that you told me that about Shaun Weiss, because I mean, that was such a heartbreaker, a couple years ago when those pictures came out, because I mean, he's genius. I mean, he's genius in this. He's genius in the Mighty Ducks, but like his level and understanding of like delivering comedy lines, and sarcasm, and I mean, just what if we already know each other's names? It's like it makes me laugh every single time.
Or to get on the scale, get off the scale.
Oh,
and he goes, get on the scale, and then he goes, get off the scale. He's like, all right, yep, I'm gonna do it. And he does this whole like, it was just like, you can't teach that.
No,
nobody directed him. He did all this like without direction. Like, nobody was like, Judd was like, yeah, make it a little more, like throw it away. No, he was teaching Judd about comedy basically at that time. I mean, Sean, innately hilarious. Yeah.
I hope you see the joy on my face, because it's literally my favorite scene in the entire movie.
It's
when he's like,
I lost it when I was on set. We all were cracking up. Yeah, it was amazing.
Like he goes, get on the scale, and he gets on like with all this false confidence. And he goes like 1 second later, get off the scale. Oh, okay, he knows exactly.
Got it. Yeah. He's like, you're all right. I gained 30 minutes. Yeah, he's good, and he really wants to get back into it. What he went through, and I don't want to speak for him at all, because he's not getting out there right now. He kind of wants to make sure that all his P's and Q's are there, and he looks better, but he is better. He's kind of like out of the limelight right now, because he just doesn't want to just like show up and have people bombard him with all, because ultimately Like it's it's the where are they now kind of thing. It has this kind of like clickbait uh, feeling around it. Like
Hmm.
everybody wants to talk to him. Why? Because he was in the shit and now he's getting better. But like he was in the shit. Also, it's what people want to see him being in the shit
Hmm.
so he can get better. So he realizes that he stays away from social media. He stays away from pictures. He really doesn't want to address a lot of that stuff. Still, I think it's still like a little touchy for him. So he's taken a step back, but he's doing really well.
Well, yeah, I
Doing
mean,
really
and it's got to be an extremely fresh wound too, right? I would imagine that if any of us were in that position, we'd kind of just want to surround ourselves with the people that we can trust, that have our best interests at heart, to kind of build
Yeah.
yourself back up.
Oh man, it's unfortunate. I don't know if I want to go into all of this, but this is some stuff that's going on that there were some people around him that made it seem like everything was in his best interest and kind of used him a little bit at the time when he was getting better. And it was sad to see. It was a hard thing to approach and to help him out with that. But we ended up helping him out. A friend of mine, Natanya Beth Ross, who you might know from um, Secret Life of Alex Mack,
Oh, of course.
and
Yeah.
Babysitters Club.
Yeah.
She has connections within the recovery world. She recovered herself, and she now works in the recovery world, and she really helped him out a lot.
I love that network still exists. Like that network we were talking about of the kid stars of the
that-
era. You're right. I mean, it's got to be a connection that you guys, you guys are the only ones that really understand what all of you went through on varying different levels, just in terms of
Yeah,
acting, at that age. And I mean, just what we were talking about before, being 7 years old and figuring out what rejection is. Like, other people that were acting get that, but I dealt with rejection from girls when I was older, but not at 7.
still scares me. That
Yeah,
scares
it's
me
still
too, yeah.
terrible. Still terrible.
But yeah, I don't know. See, it's something that I can't put a finger on exactly what it is, but there is a connection. I mean, yeah, of course we're all child actors, but there's this unwritten rule or law that we all kind of share, and we all kind of have this camaraderie, and we see it when we're talking to each other. And I'll see a follow on Instagram from somebody who was a former child star, and I'll be like, oh, look, he recognized me, I recognize, and we follow, and we say a couple things. And I still messaged Corey Feldman. He's in the documentary, but I'll still talk to him about some of the stuff. And he's a big proponent that no child should be an actor. Like, I don't know how you would have a narrative without kids being in anything, but he's saying nobody under 18 should be allowed to become famous, because fame is such a crazy thing that anybody under 18 would not know how to handle it properly. Unhealthy. So he makes a valid point, and but we would chat about these kind of things, and we still talk sometimes and say what's up, and it's an interesting. I never grew up with Corey Feldman.
Right.
I grew up with Corey Feldman like you grew up with Pete and Pete. Like, I watched Corey Feldman, and here I am chatting somebody who I was a fan of, who is now, a comrade.
Right. Right. You have shared experiences. Hey,
Yeah.
whose idea was it to make Gerald Garner an Islanders fan? I always found that hilarious.
Probably Brill.
Just wanted the kid to be an Islanders fan.
Brill or Judd, but I think Brill is big into hockey. So, Brill wrote the Ducks. So he's probably like, Islanders fan, huh? Team of the future. I said, everybody's shitting on Islanders, and Brill's like, fuck that. Islanders are the best. We show the world.
So, after Heavyweights, did you voluntarily take a pause from acting and just kind of go and try to be as normal as possible? Because the other side of this, look, there was a kid who went to high school with me who was he had a bit part in The Sixth Sense, and there was another on Nickelodeon. There was this. It was The Way Pete and Pete Started, like an interstitial, that they would just put on. It was like a 3-minute show. Yeah, called As Our School Bus Turns, and it went to pilot. It got one full-length pilot, but that was it. And he was on that, and I know that throughout. I mean, all the way to the end of high school, it was literally. But no, it was that's what people talked about. Oh, you know what he did? You know what he was on? You remember, him. And it was just constant. I have to imagine that the idea of like, okay, I'm just going to go and live a normal life is a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, in New York, it's really easy. When you're in a place like New York, if you're in Los Angeles, I think it would definitely be what you're saying. It would be not as easy. But in New York, it's not that hard to do. I mean, there's
Interesting.
the occasion where you're hanging out and then people are like, "Oh, you're the Ducks kid," or like, "Oh yeah, I know." And then you'll see people kind of acting weird around you, and like, and you'll know immediately, like they know who I am, like they know I'm from and then it becomes a weird thing.
Right.
But for the most part, that's not. I think New York literally is. Nobody gives a shit.
That's true.
You're out there right now, you know, you go out down the street, people will be filming a movie and like, you'll see somebody famous and half the people won't even look at like Tom Cruise in the middle of the street. They'll just be like, oh, this fucking douchebag.
They go like this. They're blocking traffic for this.
Yeah.
This is why.
This is what I'm late for work for.
Yeah.
Scientology. Yeah. So, I think it was the reason I made that choice. It was partially not a choice and it was partially a choice. Like I was 16. I was still auditioning. I found myself starting to get into the habit of like, kind of like pushing myself away from the business. And I didn't know why. And I think it lingered for a while. And I don't know, maybe I need some therapy to figure out what it was, but I think maybe it was a fear of not booking again. But if I'm trying, then I'm a failure. That could be a piece of it. And I think another piece was I just wanted to kind of like let loose. I feel like I was constantly thinking about the next job. You're worried about your next job. You have that chasing the dragon feeling where it's like, wow, the Ducks was great. Okay. Oh, wow. Heavyweights was fun. Oh, now I got Pete and Pete. This is great. There's silence for like a month or two. What if nothing else comes?
Is this over?
It's petrifying.
Yeah.
And as a little kid, I don't think you even realize how petrifying it is. I don't think you realize why you make the decisions. But I think I kind of left to avoid that in a way. And also, I went to Israel for like, my brother was learning in Israel, Jewish family. My brother decided to go out there and learn. And I visited him for like, it was going to be a month. And I ended up staying there for about a year. And then I went back again when I was 18, did the same thing. And then, try to get back into the business when I was like 19, slowly. But you get a child star stamp on you if you're out of something for a while and you get back in. It's like, oh, he's desperate for get back in, and they see that in the resume. And it's like, and there's another thing about, another stigma attached to it is like all of a sudden you're desperate for a job if you were a former child actor, as opposed to just trying to get back into acting in general,
Yeah.
And so I saw that and kind of took a break from that again. And then I did some real estate for a while, waited tables, bartended, real estate again, did some pretty decent real estate at one point. And then I was like, I'm going to get back into acting. And I literally put my all into it and started booking again and got back into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of amazing when you just like scroll through your IMDb. There's this, there's that gap of you going like, I'm going to be a regular person for a while. But then it seems like once it started, like you've worked consistently, it seems like for about the last 10, 11 years, like just doing stuff kind of all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it was consistent, but there were moments where I needed to bartend because, that consistency I wasn't a character on a show. Like you book a character on a show.
Yeah.
You're good.
Right.
But then you need to make an income. And when you're doing, guest stars here and guest stars there, you need to supplement your income sometimes. So there was real estate and there was bartending, but then, slowly that momentum started to build. And I really had to pretty much start from scratch. People would find out who I was on set and they wouldn't hire me because of who I was, which is something that at first I was like, I don't want that. And then I was like, hire me because I'm this. I don't care. I want to book this job. But, I would find like somebody from Gossip Girl, the dad in Gossip Girl was like, do you guys know who this is? Like he made this deal out of it. And it was cool because there's a bunch of like young celebrities who were just like, oh, this fucking guy's pretending to be a Russian. What is this? Yes. But at the same time, it was definitely hard because I was coming up from scratch again. I
Yeah.
had to start from square one.
Do you think that had anything to do with your physical transformation, that like somewhere psychologically you wanted to like look completely different, so it wasn't like this is a rollover of what I was doing when I was a kid. This is
Oh,
a completely new human being here?
not so much. I think if anything, like if heavy set was a healthy way to be and it made me feel good
You
and it somehow made me people could still see who I was from back then. I mean, I would use it to my advantage, whatever helped me book. If people said, "Oh, this is the kid from Heavyweights. Look, he's looks the same. Bring him on."
Yeah.
I would probably use it.
Yeah.
No shame, no
That's
shame.
good.
I would pull whatever strings I needed to pull. But no, I think it was just me, the opposite. Like I would stay in shape sometimes because I knew I was auditioning for roles that were the dude who's in shape.
Right.
And then I would show up after like, a week bender and dominoes. And then I would show up and I would be like, I can't show up with no six pack. I got to show. So the pressure would be on the other side. It would be like, I need to
Yeah.
stay this part, Yeah.
Yeah. Is it weird that people have this connection with you that for like I don't like to look back on stuff that much, that I did. Like
Right.
like it's not my favorite thing in the world to do. And
I don't think it's healthy to like look too far back into things.
yeah. And
Yeah.
just like be like, yep, that was when it was good, man. Like that's just yeah, it sucks when that happens. Like but
Yeah.
I think you have a really like healthy way of celebrating this thing that everybody celebrates because we all love it without going like, yeah, yeah, and this is me and this. Is it weird for you that?
Well, I was just going to show you a picture of me in Heavyweights. Can I? No, I'm joking.
And if you'd like to purchase the picture, I'm selling prints.
And here's on my website. We can show you.
Yeah. I got bootleg Perkis Power T-shirts available.
Man, I know people that have done stuff like that. I mean, I just did hawk some Heavyweights shirts with this company, so maybe I am.
Dude, I know because I saw those shirts.
I'm that guy. Oh man, I'm out of here.
Number one, here's what I saw because I saw those shirts.
Yeah.
Two things. Number one, I got so pissed at myself for missing the window that they were open because it's like,
I'll send you a shirt, man.
I would love a shirt. Yeah, Wu-Tang meets Heavyweights is like everything. It's perfect.
I'm a huge Wu-Tang fan.
Right.
So yeah, it was.
And number two, it made me happy that you were kind of promoting them with this sort of humor where I was like, oh, good, he's comfortable with it's not this demon on his shoulder that you're like, don't talk about that, talk about my new stuff, but it's got to be strange that for so many people, your past is their present. Like the fact that you did this movie and this was a time in your life when you did it, and that's what we're talking about. But for me, I'm not talking about the past. I'm talking about this movie that I just watched recently again because I like it. Like it's got to be an interesting thing for you.
Honestly, like a lot of my friends with the Ducks and stuff, they just, unless they're getting paid a good amount of money, they're just like, I don't really want to like even touch it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it.
Yeah.
It's why, like, I got new stuff going on. Like, here's what, but I think there's also there's a piece of, I don't know, when people are like that, it kind of pisses me off when I see other people like that. Like, I was part of something, whether I made it or I was an actor in it, I was part of something that was huge for some people. And I'm grateful. Like, I'm grateful that people are excited about it and happy about it. And I'm like, man, even if I wasn't acting, I would talk about this shit all the time just because I think people want to hear about it. And I know I would want to hear about it if I was on the other side. So, and I do want to hear about some of the nostalgia because I'm a nostalgia fan myself. So
yeah.
I do listen to podcasts and stuff about nostalgia because I'm interested in knowing what these people are up to and what was it like, and I think it's interesting. It's par for the course, man. And no reason to be like, nasty about it.
Yeah. And I think that there's a big difference too between kind of being out there and trying to work it into every conversation and going like, oof, that's a little rough. And
Oh, yeah.
somebody like me going like, hey man, I'm a huge fan of this thing and I would really love to talk to you about it and just celebrate it for a while. And you're
Yeah.
being like, yeah, that sounds
I've seen your show before. Like, it's funny right now, the amount of requests are coming in, and it's not me being like, you're special but like there's a lot of requests right now, which is, I'm also grateful because of the nostalgia burst. Everybody wants to talk about heavyweights, ducks, and all that other stuff. But like I know who you are. So I really wanted to talk to you as well.
good. I'm glad. Yeah, I mean, it was really funny. Like Jim Norton and I were doing a radio show one day, and like we're from different generations. Jim's older than me. So like we're literally live on the air. And our talent booker just runs into the studio. This is when we were, in New York doing the show and everything. And he goes, guys, Hambino from the Sandlots, he's here. I was like, and Jim was like, what? Who are you talking about? I was like, the guy. He was the kid in the Sandlot, and he was in the Big
You're
Green.
not a nostalgia fan?
Well, he didn't know. It wasn't his generation, so he didn't.
Yeah.
He wasn't there for it. But
Right.
he was there. I don't know, promoting some product or something like that. Like, I think he was promoting some kind of s'mores product or something. It was just like, it was some product that had hired him to have the connection there with the movie.
Out, yeah.
And I was like, Roland, get him in the studio like right now. Like, let's talk to him. And he was great. And it was like, it just felt good to have this moment of like, can we like celebrate?
Wait, which one is he? Which one is the great? Which one was?
He was I wish I remembered his name off the top of my head, but he's the redheaded kid who he was in the Sandlot and he was in the Big Green and he was, he was.
Yeah, I saw he auditioned for heavyweights. He was at the screen test for heavyweights.
I'm surprised he wasn't in it. He was in everything else. He's great.
No, I am too. I remember recognizing him when I was there. I was like, that's the kid from everything.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So yeah, dude. I mean, I did. When is? Do you know when Stigma is coming out? Because I watched the trailer is on YouTube. And it kind of
so there's a new trailer we took down. We're gonna put back up. We don't know 100%. So the issue with Stigma is we never got it signed up to a network or never got any network behind it because we were still working on it when COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
So all the pitching and all that stuff that we were going to do ended up getting on pause, and all of our filming was on pause. My filmmaker, it was a passion project of mine. It wasn't something that I signed up and got it was me and 3 other people just filming stuff. And it's been kind of guerrilla style for a while. So it depends on the way things turn out in the next couple months due to COVID and restrictions. I don't want to do Zoom interviews, I don't mind Zoom interviews, like if it's a radio show or if it's a television show, but if it's a documentary,
right.
I think Zoom is just not, it just doesn't look good,
I mean,
I can get a camera in the room.
I also think, putting those Zoom interviews, if it's clearly a Zoom window, like it's gonna feel like that one scene in Wall Street where like it's the one scene that takes you out of the movie because he's on his giant phone on the beach, and you're like, oh, okay, I know exactly when this was made. Like, I definitely think that to put a Zoom window, in a film is like instantly people are gonna go like, oh, you shot that in COVID, and you're like, we shouldn't even be thinking about that.
So, I mean, there will be moments in it where it's kind of following me around in like my journey as a former child actor, and like the shit that I go through, the wonderful things I go through, and like my perception of all of this, while kind of dissecting what it is that creates the stigma.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be some COVID, there's going to be some of that stuff in there. It might be some therapy sessions, which might end up being on Zoom.
Sure.
But ultimately, I want it to be, I don't know. It is a passion project, and I'm not really worried about the money I make off of it. I'm not really worried about notoriety. If I ended up just putting it out on like a YouTube channel and that's it, I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
I literally just think it's something that I would want to see. And I think I would like people to like know what's behind the curtain a little bit more than, they've had the opportunity. before. You know, now they can see it from a perspective of a child actor, and they can see, you know, me talking to my colleagues and kind of dissecting what this whole thing is about. And like, maybe they'll look at, you know, Lindsay Lohan and what Taylor Swift is dealing with and Justin Timberlake. Maybe they'll look at some of these big celebrities that had some falls, and maybe they'll look at it in a different way. Maybe like put a little more of a human lens on it, as opposed to just their fodder for entertainment.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's just so interesting. There's just so many perspectives to tackle it from. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. We should talk again when it's out and you want to promote it and stuff like that, because
Yeah.
I'd love to get eyes on it. And I appreciate you giving me your time today, Aaron, man. This was
I
great.
appreciate talking to you, man. Definitely.
Is there any place that you want to send people, like on social media, or any place where people can like check for updates on the documentary?
Yeah, Aaron Schwartz 11 is my Instagram. You can just go to Aaron Schwartz 11, aaronschwartz.net. But mostly, I barely even touch the website, so probably just Instagram.
Yeah. That's very 2021 of you. I mean, I can't imagine being like,
Yeah.
no, I don't really post on Instagram, but keep checking my website. And you're like, what?
Yeah. Check my MySpace. Go on MySpace. So I have 4 friends there. You can go on there. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.